Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Maqbool with you at BTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is in reference to what is going on politically in the country in terms of the upcoming elections. We have seen, of course, that various developments have taken place prior to the elections, making this elections quite incidental. And this is also something that we have discussed previously in terms of the court's involvement in a number of decisions impacting political parties and their participation in the elections. One such very important decision is what came out over the weekend with the Supreme Court talking about the ECB order, reinstated it with regards to the PTI not getting its bat symbol in this elections, which means that the PTI will have to contest the elections as independent candidates and not use the bat symbol. This is something that was earlier raised by the PTI in the Peshawar High Court as well, and then of course in the Supreme Court, in which this matter was discussed, and it has been now established by the Supreme Court's verdict that the ECP had the jurisdiction over the matter and that the intra-party polls evidence given by the PTI was not sufficient, and the fact that this is something that has been established by the PTI members' petitions. And so we're going to be taking a look at this very important decision and the impact that that's going to have on PTI's participation in the electoral polls, and also in terms of the way that various quarters are responding, particularly of course the PTI, to this decision, criticizing the courts and blaming them of not providing a level playing field to the party. The party has also decided to withdraw its application with regards to the level playing field case, again citing the fact that its workers and lawmakers were taken away from the parliament, and the symbol of bat has snatched away their political legitimacy. And this is also something, of course, that has been spoken in the courts as well, with the Chief Justice of Pakistan establishing that it is not the courts that make the laws, they only enforce them, and that it is the PTI's responsibility to ensure that whatever laws are in place are actually implemented, and that institutions, including the judiciary, should not be dragged or blamed into this. So we're going to be taking a look at all of this in terms of what the PTI has in mind in terms of its future strategy and what sort of aspects are going to be taken or what options exist for the party. At the same time, when we're moving very, very close to the elections, it seems that the ECP is fully prepared to conduct the elections despite the resolutions that have been coming in from the Senate, and has said that the 8th of February is the date given to it has been given by it to the Supreme Court, and this is the commitment that they're going to uphold. We're also going to be taking a look at the talk with regards to whether or not the democracy has been valued above all over everything else, particularly in decisions of the electoral symbols, something that was also contested in the aftermath of the Supreme Court verdict. This is going to be our discussion in the first segment of the show today. Our next one is going to take a look at the report released by Human Rights Watch, the World Report 2024, which takes a look back at a number of issues around the world, including that of India, in which it has highlighted that the kinds of human rights violations and the kind of atrocities that have been committed by the Indian authorities or in case of the minorities and especially Muslims in the country is something which has raised a lot of alarm. And this is something that has been highlighted in the report that is not only limited to the kind of human rights violations that have been happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but the rest of the country as well, citing, of course, many cases in which the government itself was directly or indirectly involved, including it mentions the raids on BBC offices, which blocked the documentary talking about Narendra Modi in India. This also includes, of course, complete suppression on the rights of journalists and freedom of press in the country, communal violence that sprung up in Haryana last year, the violence that also came about in Manipur state, to which little was done by the country, limited freedom, of course, in terms of the kind of atrocities and human rights violations that have been coming in, both in terms of the larger area of the country and also in the occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and of course of accusations of sexual violence by the BJP leaders, and of course the kind of hate speech that has incited violence in the country. So we're going to be taking a look at all of these aspects that have been highlighted highlighted in the Human Rights report, and also taking a look at what exactly will be the impact of this report, because it's not the first time that it has been established that this kind of measures and actions have been taken by India in complete disregard of international norms. And so whether or not this Human Rights Watch report is going to mean something. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online for our first segment by Barrister Babar, Imran, Advocate Supreme Court. Thank you very much, Barrister Babar, for being part of the show. And later on, we'll also be joined by Hafiz, Ahsaan, khokhar, also Barrister Supreme Court. Thank you very much, everyone, for being part of the discussion. And Barrister Babar, I'm going to start with you with reference to the decision that has come out on Saturday. And this is something, of course, that impacts the previous ruling party of the country, and many believe the most popular party of the country. And so we want to understand then, given the way that this has been processed and the issues that have been cited by the court, especially with regards to the areas of jurisdiction by the ECP and the fact that evidence of intra-party polls was not established by the PTI, what do you make of the kind of criticism now being leveled against the courts by the party, claiming that this is not a decision that has been taken objectively, claiming that they are being targeted and blaming the institutions for snatching the level playing field from the party? What do you have to say about that?
Thank you, Sana, for having me on the show. Firstly, this decision on the whole might be an unpopular decision, or might be some of the parties would not like it. But I think by looking at the judgment, it's a small judgment, a 5-page judgment, but looking at the judgment, I feel that the judgment on the whole is a very legally correct judgment. If we look at the background of this whole issue, if we go back, this has been going on since 2021. On the 24th of May 2021, the ECP had sent a notice to PTI that under Section 208 of Elections Act 2017, you need to hold the intra-party elections. And then the PTI did held elections on 8th of June 2022, but they were again irregular. Then the ECP asked them again to hold an intra-party election, and against that they went to the Lahore High Court, and Akbar S. Babar came as a complainant to the Election Commission of Pakistan. And the Election Commission of Pakistan's judgment, I also talked about this before on the on your program, that judgment was actually legally very correct. But then again, PTI took that decision to Lahore High Court and to Peshawar High Court at the same time. Lahore High Court first, and then the Peshawar High Court after that. And the Peshawar High Court did actually decide in favor of PTI, and they gave them the symbol back. But then when it came to the Supreme Court, I would say if we look at the main points, just the main points of the Supreme Court judgment. Firstly, the bench wanted to ask the PTI lawyers whether there was any malafide or bad intention against the Election Commission of Pakistan. Can you prove that? But that was not proven. Then the whole judgment, the points are very legal. The second point, which was before them, was whether there is a section of the Election Act, which is 215.3, of holding intra-party elections. If not holding intra-party elections, then the Election Commission has to give you a show cause notice, and if then they are not satisfied, they can very easily say that we are not giving you a symbol because you did not opt for the intra-party elections. Now that provision 215.3 of the Elections Act, nobody throughout this legal battle challenged it. So the Supreme Court said that, well, when 215.3 of the Election Act is not challenged before us, we cannot, read it down or declare it ultra vires of the Constitution. So we have to hold the Election Act, and we have to look at 215.3, and that stands. There was no malafide by the Election Commission of Pakistan. You did not hold the elections. That's why they did not give you the symbol, and that's why the decision is correct. Moreover, coming to the Peshawar High Court's decision, the Peshawar High Court's decision was, it stated that the Election Commission of Pakistan had no jurisdiction to decide anything about the intra-party elections. I think the Supreme Court very elaborately said that if that is so, if they don't have the jurisdiction to decide the intra-party elections, well, then that would make the whole Elections Act 2017 redundant. So if that one provision is not applicable, then that means that the whole act is not applicable. So that was another very important point. Then in ECP, then in Peshawar High Court, then in Supreme Court, all they did was they showed a certificate saying that, well, intra-party elections were held, and there was no more evidence than that which was given to any of the courts. And lastly, the point on the basis of which the PTI lost the election was that when they went to the Peshawar High Court, they did not state in their petition that we have also, before coming here, filed a petition in Lahore High Court. And we have a principle of law that once you choose one particular court, then you cannot go to another court. So I think looking at all of these points, the decision by the Supreme Court is a very legally correct judgment.
Right, absolutely. And Barrister Babar, I want to explore a couple of things that you've mentioned just now, especially with regards to the last few points. The party, of course, has been the ruling party previously, and of course there are legal advisors who suggest what should be the course of action. This is a very, very serious case with the party's electoral symbol on the line. Why is it then that such a mistake was made? If we talk about the Lahore High Court or the Peshawar High Court, why is it that these actions were taken without really looking at the legal avenues that are in place and whether or not a party will benefit from that? Secondly, specifically with regards to the hearing that took place in the Supreme Court, it seemed that the PTI wasn't able to establish evidence, as you mentioned, with regards to intra-party polls being conducted. What exactly should have been provided by the party as evidence for intra-party polls? And do you think that the PTI throughout this hearing could have just presented the case better, and that would have made the difference?
Well, I think firstly, if there is a petition and it lacks in the legal language or the legal prayers, then obviously I would have to give it to the lawyers, or probably their, I wouldn't call it incompetency, but there are times when you tend to, you can't just put in everything into single petition. But yes, obviously, I would say that probably they were not competent enough to put in all the grounds. I would also give them, a little leeway because this party is going through a bad phase. Everybody is cornered. So, and they were in a hurry to get relief from different courts. The petitions, well, we take a lot of time to draft petitions, but these petitions were drafted, I'm sure, within hours and filed before the courts because, the time was very less. As far as the evidence is concerned, what evidence could they have given? Well, if they had, gone through the intra-party elections as far as the Elections Act is concerned. Well, that is another huge, long process where the chairman is concerned, where so many members of the party are concerned, then there is voting, that there are minutes, and so many things. All those things could have been placed before the Supreme Court, but instead of that, not only before the Supreme Court, but every other court, there was just only one certificate which said that intra-party elections were held.
All right. And Barrister Babar, there's also the conversation that is being held in the aftermath of this verdict that perhaps the concerns of democracy should have also been considered, and this should have been taken as a case of democratic value in light of the upcoming elections, and not just in terms of the legality or the technical aspects in terms of inter-party polls or ECP's jurisdiction. Do you agree with that, and whether or not you think that that should have been or has been a factor that was impacting the decision of the Supreme Court in light of the fact that this was a major party of the country that now cannot participate in the elections with its symbol?
Well, we have to give it to them. Obviously, the honorable bench, they are at times pressurized by, it's the biggest political party, and they, for democracy, they are obviously pressurized. And you see, but I think as far as you're talking about whether we should go for the law per se, or we should go for equity in a sense that we run the whole system. If you look at these two different judgments, I think the Peshawar High Court judgment was something where they looked at the equity side of it too. and made it a more democracy acceptable judgment. And as far as the Supreme Court was concerned, they went purely by the book. So at the end of the day, it also depends on the judge's mind as to what side they want to go to.
All right. Faisal, when we take a look at this decision, then of course it has impacted a major political party, and it's going to impact the way that the elections are going to turn out as well. And so when we take a look at this particular decision and the fact that the PTI will not be able to now participate with the bat symbol and is going to go forward as independent candidates, how do you see first the Supreme Court verdict in light of the consideration that this was an important aspect in terms of the level playing field that was discussed earlier, and then secondly, also in terms of the kind of possibilities that now exist for the PTI as independent candidates? Do you think that they still have the kind of chances at success that they kept on mentioning about?
Sana, obviously, if we look at PTI as a political party, they must be having their own stance over it. Obviously, they will be having a sort of plan how to deal with it when they don't have bat as their symbol, and they don't have it. And of course, all of their candidates, they are utilizing different other symbols which are being allotted to them by Election Commission of Pakistan. PTI as a political party, we all know that it has been going through a lot. Obviously, since almost 2 years now, they were on the roads. So we can say that during that time they must have made lots of mistakes. That them mistakes should not be coming from the political parties. The political parties should be behaving like a political party rather than obviously, imposing themselves on everyone. That is not the political parties do. They are only required to go for the elections, and in elections they show up, and of course they seek votes or will of the people, and that's what actually makes them powerful. Other than that, nothing makes them powerful at all. So they have gone through a lot. They have gone through many laws in these 2 years, and that is why we are seeing them, their leaders, their tier 2 leaders, tier 3 leaders, everyone is affected by that. And of course 9th May has played a pivotal role in it. And if we talk about the losing the symbol, this was of course a punishment given by ECP, which was challenged later on at Peshawar High Court. Peshawar High Court's decision was purely, it was on the basis that they were obviously highlighting it in perspective of the voters, that it would ease the voters to go on the voting day, and it would be easier for them to find out whether which party they are going to vote for or not, because of course they were looking at the aspect of literacy rate as well. Our voters, they can't read, but when it comes to symbols, it's easier for them to simply point out the symbol and stamp it and go home. So it was quite easier for the voters to go through it. Now it is a mammoth task for PTI as a political party. And if we, in this whole context, if we talk about the decision which has come from Supreme Court, of course, before that decision came out, I personally was expecting that the aspect of human it will be looked after, because eventually, Sana, if we talk about the Constitution of Pakistan or any law of Pakistan, it is there only because of one reason, that Pakistan is Democratic Republic, Islamic Democratic Republic of Pakistan, and Constitution Avenue, elected people come here and they make the rule. And who elects them? People at large. So if people at large are bringing them people on the Constitution Avenue, then it should be in the hands of the people at large as well, so that they can be facilitated and they can send somebody who they want. And of course, the simplest way was that the ease to the human factor should have been provided. The voters, they should have been provided with the ease. But of course, when we talk about the law says, and it has been elaborated by the Supreme Court, and there is no reason of me to go against that decision, because it is purely on the basis of law. But of course, if we look at the human angle, if we look at the voter angle, will of the people, then of course I see it from a different angle, and that is that the people should have been facilitated in this case.
Okay, and Farrukh, I'd like to explore this further in light of what the PTI has also done with reference to the level playing field case and withdrawn its applications, and also blamed the court for snatching away the party's level playing field. And so I want to understand then, of course, with regards to the party in itself and the kind of options they have now to contest the elections, and the way that the institutions are being blamed, how will then, as Faisal was pointing out, the people's view will be affected in light of these institutions, especially at such a sensitive time, given the fact that these are the same institutions that were praised or even blamed by other quarters to favor the PTI over others?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question, and by the way, welcome back. You know, earlier, because we were discussing so many things and there were questions that you put to Barrister Babar, I thought that I am going to try to actually talk to some of the points that were highlighted earlier as well.
Okay.
And of course, your question is beautiful, and I'm going to talk about that as well. You know, when you were talking about you know, this decision and its place in history, I wanted to highlight something bigger that is happening all over the world. Number one, this year, half of the world's population is going to go to vote, right? That means that the future of democracy all over the world is at stake. And because of that, and given that there is populism which has been on the rise for quite some time, we see that all the poll bodies are vigilant. So, and then a major political party losing its symbol is not a small story. It is a big story. But I haven't seen any international outcry. Why would that be? I mean, of course, people can go on talking about anything under the sun, but there are two small mercies that might have played a role. Number one, the entire proceedings of the court were live and everybody was watching it. Secondly, it was also in English. So the role of an interpreter just goes away, right? Because of that, we were also able to understand what was going on, and one would actually hazard a guess that all over the world was convinced that the proceeding was in the right. It was not wrong. And why would that be? And what exactly happened afterwards? One, we saw that there were attempts by PTI's lawyers to use this forum to make political statements rather than legal statements, right? You were talking about evidence, and there are three things that are needed in the evidence at that time to prove their claims. Number one, some kind of you know, paper trail, correspondence between various stakeholders within the party. Number two, receipts regarding you know, who actually paid the fees and who actually went and got elected. And the third one was also very important, that was earlier mentioned by Barrister Babar, minutes. Unfortunately, we could not find a single thing out of these things. People who were expelled, you know, if they were expelled, there was no money, sorry, not money, no paper trail to show that they were expelled. And the lawyers actually dropped the ball. Now, the biggest question right now is, what did the media and the pundits then do? Because they didn't have a case otherwise, they ended up actually litigating the whole case and try to dismantle the whole case before your eyes. One of the editorials actually said that a party lost its symbol based merely on technicalities. Excuse me, those technicalities are called laws. And if you think that laws are not important, then of course, for the past 5 years, whatever our complaints have been to the Supreme Court, they are immaterial, because then laws don't matter. 5 people sitting on a bench should actually decide and just make up laws and give relief whatever they want to. And then media's approach has been more or less what I have been actually saying in the past as well. Who are you going to believe? Me or your lying eyes? Because it was happening before your eyes, right? So in that situation, I saw that there was a contradiction in media's own perspective. Remember These notices have been going out to PTI since 2021, and this is 2024. Repeatedly, these notices went, and the party's lawyers could not prove that there were actual credible elections that took place. What does that mean, sir? And the question is, if your media keeps on telling us that the most powerful party, most popular party is PTI, if it is so popular, and if its leader is so popular, why not hold the party, elections within the party and just prove it? You did not do it. Why? It somehow tells you that there is a contradiction in media's own narrative as well. Either the party is not popular, either the party does not have that kind of democratic spirit, or then, it has held elections. That didn't happen either. So with all these things, honestly, the most depressing part is that our media, because most of our pundits are emotionally, ignorant, there is a lack of emotional intelligence involved. That's why we keep on expecting the court to actually write laws, and write laws that I like, not the laws that actually anybody else likes. The final thing, because you were talking about the humanitarian angle, do you think that all the candidates who are running are somehow barred from participating in elections? No, they are not. They are going to be elected if they want to, and if they have the kind of popularity. Symbol plays a role, Sanan, but never exaggerate that role, because these parties are masters of communication. I'm talking about PTI that has managed to actually turn this low point in its history, such a low point. I mean, you go to court and court actually does not, you can't even answer a single question straight. And even then they have managed to transform into their own victimhood narrative. So do you think that they have any lack of communication on the election day? Whatever symbol is there, they will be able to mobilize their voters.
But you think people are voting for the people or the symbol?
I think that people usually vote for party. Of course, electables play a role, but PTI doesn't have the first harvest of the electables because of exodus of so many people from the party. They have gone to other parties, right? And secondly, then manifesto, we haven't seen any manifesto either. So right now they are voting for the party, but the problem is that this party hasn't been able to, actually, instead of talking about their own victimhood, they haven't been able to come clean on their own faults. If you look at what they have done, I mean, any other political party, especially, for example, Balochs or Pashtuns, had they done similar kind of thing on May 9th, I assure you that party would have been finished. PTI is not finished. So just, count your blessings and participate in elections, because if you're going to win, you're going to win.
All right. Barrister Babar, a question with regards to the way that people are looking towards institutions and whether or not you think the Supreme Court's credibility in any way has been tarnished, particularly with this verdict, and particularly with the way that different political parties, including the PTI, have time and again blamed the courts for being partial towards one party or the other. Secondly, can you also elaborate on whether or not the verdict puts into question the position of the party's current chairman?
Well, firstly, I think as we have seen, whenever we are representing clients in a court of law, it always happens is that one side has to win and the other side has to lose. Now, whenever one side loses, then it's a bad day for them, and when one side wins, it's a good day for them. Same way, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, just 2 days back, when they won the case from the Peshawar High Court, everybody was very jubilant. But when today, when they lost the case from the Supreme Court of Pakistan, the Supreme Court of Pakistan is a bad court in their eyes. it is a court which is not, upholding the democratic principles, the fundamental rights. So I think it really doesn't matter that what people would say. I think the decision on the whole is by the apex court of the country, and it is by actually one of our best judges, and the decision by itself is legally very, very correct. Now, as to coming to your second point, I think.
Barrister Babar, just to explore that a bit further, in reference to this case in particular, but also in reference to what has been going on, especially in the past couple of years, we understand the courts have been dragged into a lot of the issues, unfortunately, that needed to be solved politically. And so I want your perspective as Advocate Supreme Court in terms of the way that you see the general public regard the judiciary as an important, credible body of Pakistan in order to make these decisions that impact such larger interest of the general public. Do you think that the people still have that belief that what the court decides is important and it matters and is objective, given the fact that one party or the other keeps on telling them one thing or the other?
Well, Sana, firstly, the Supreme Court is the last arbiter, right? Now, if we take the whole population as a whole, they do look up to obviously the last arbiter. What we have to distinguish here is that we are actually talking about different political parties. Well, everybody is not political. Me, myself, I'm an apolitical person. Now, I obviously look up to the courts. Today, if PTI thinks that Supreme Court is, is not a good court for them, or there is something wrong, well, on the other hand, I'm sure the PMLN is thinking that, well, it is a very good court and we have all the trust in the Supreme Court of Pakistan, or the same way the Pakistan People's Party. But I think politics aside, yes, people have all the faith in all our courts in the country. That is why it is full of so many cases, and now they also have to deal with the political cases. These cases should not even come to the courts in the first instance, as Justice Athar Minallah has always been saying, that we are here to interpret the laws for the common public, but every single matter, all political cases are being brought to the courts. They should go to the parliament. They have other institutions. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, the last arbiter always for all the institutions is the Supreme Court of Pakistan. So somebody's going to like the decisions and somebody is not going to like the decision, but everybody holds them in high esteem.
Yeah, Barrister Babar, I mean, today I was going through one of the press talks by one of the Jamaat-e-Islami leaders, and he was claiming that they are writing a letter to the Chief Justice of Pakistan related to the intra-party elections held within the other political parties as well. He was actually mentioning the parties, People's Party, and then PMLN, and then ANP as well at the same time. And he was seeking in that letter from Chief Justice of Pakistan to have the same treatment. All of them parties should be treated the same way. Do you think that it will be heard like that in the Supreme Court?
And regarding the position of the chairman?
The chairman of Sana, which I don't get that question.
The PTS chairman. My question was earlier. Yes.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't go into all of what has happened between our one institution and the chairman of PTI, but coming to your point, I think yesterday during the course of arguments, it was also during the arguments, the PTI lawyer also said that, well, do you know that ANP, the Awami National Party, did not have the intra-party elections? And the Honorable Justice, Chief Justice, said that, well, that issue is not in front of me. I think that if that issue comes in front of the bench, I think that would also be taken on the same footing.
Excellent.
Right. Barrister Babar, let me reframe my question. My question is, if a party's intra-party polls have not been established and it has been said that they're not conducted, there hasn't been evidence, what does that mean? The symbol is withdrawn. What does that mean for the party's current chairman? Does he hold the position of the party's chairmanship or not?
Yes, he does. The symbol is something totally different from holding position as a chairman. I think these are totally two
But
separate things.
have we not established that there is no real evidence of the intra-party polls being conducted?
Well, that is, stretching it too far. There is no definite finding on that by the court. The finding is only regards the symbol. So I
Well,
think
Supreme Court,
that would be stretching it.
Barrister
Yeah.
Babar, isn't it that the Supreme Court has actually asked PTI to hold the elections, the intra-party elections once more, of course, to have the new chairman? By then, of course, the previous chairman, I mean the current chairman they have, is not chairman anymore. So who's the chairman at this hour?
And by the way, you are commenting only on the Supreme Court's verdict. Bear in mind that Election Commission also came with a verdict. And in that also, it seemed that they have stripped the party of the leadership, current leadership's status as well.
Well, I have gone through the ECP decision in detail and I have gone through the Supreme Court decision in detail. There is no such mention of anything of that sort. And additionally, I would also say that now one of the problems that I foresee is that obviously, as you rightly said, that our people are uneducated, they can't read or write, but they can look at a balla or they can look at a cycle. Now, I think what is going to happen is, the recent is that the Election Commission of Pakistan, uh, different candidates of PTI, they have been given different symbols altogether. So I think once people on the 8th of February goes to cast their votes, it would be difficult for them to see whether this person is from PTI or not.
All right. Thank you very much, Barrister Babar, for joining us and being part of the discussion. That's all we have from our first segment, and we'll be talking about, of course, other details later on as we proceed. We're also going to be taking a look at our next segment, which focuses on the Human Rights Watch World Report that outlines the kind of atrocities and violations that have been committed within India, and also talks about the kind of suppression that exists, especially with reference to the journalist community and the freedom of expression. And we've seen a number of incidents take place in last year that also are, of course, evident of this matter, and many of those have been pointed out in this report as well. Faisal, if you can take a look back at 2023 and also in light of the Human Rights Watch report, we've discussed, of course, all of these issues in detail as and when they were happening, but to look back over the year, of course, it gives us more perspective into what really has happened and how much of it is being taken a look at from the government as well. What do you think then will be the impact of the Human Rights Watch report?
I think, Sana, if we obviously look at this, Human Rights Watch report, of course, there were previous reports as well, and it did create impact on obviously influencing to different organizations to pressurize the Indian government, India as a state, to of course fix that in their country. But of course we saw that the under the BJP leadership of Modi, nothing was done in the favor of minorities. If we look at Kuki tribes and Methi tribes, there have been problems within Manipur, and that was entirely related to the kind of laws were being introduced out there, and the legislations which were out there to secure the minorities and the rights of the minorities. There's a special rights of minorities. Of course, they were the bone of contention within the society, and that actually gave rise to hooliganism, and we saw that the most powerful were the ones who were aligned with the center, with the central power. That was of course BJP once more, and they were ordering and calling the shots, and mobiles were being banned out there, the internet was being banned out there, and nothing in terms of news was coming out from there. During that time, the blackout time, I mean, atrocities were committed. We saw in Manipur that the two of the females whose footage actually came out a month after when it took place, they were stripped naked and they were made to march on the roads, and of course they were raped out there. These sort of scenes were coming out from India last year, and we saw that whatever happened in Haryana, and then Haryana is right next to New Delhi, and whatever was happening out there, it was disastrous, especially against the Muslims. I mean, the dwellings which are known for majority Muslims, Muslims were targeted, Muslims shops were toshed, Muslims mosques were toshed, and we saw that a special sort of people who are aligned with BJP and RSS at the same time, they were quite busy, of course, creating troubles for the minorities. And it does not end here. Of course, you know, if we talk about Christians, it was taking place against them. Then we talk about Sikhs. I mean, there are Khalistanis who are living abroad, and they've been sending people to fix them out there. And if we talk about Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, I mean, after abrogation of 370 and 35A, I mean, it's nothing new that you know, brutalities are being applied in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and it has been taking place since a long time. And now in getting reported in this report by Human Rights Watch, it is good, but of course more pressure needs to be applied on the India as a state,
right,
so that the elements, the political elements which are being hailed throughout the world, by whom it has always been propagated that India is the largest democracy of the world, I think this notion needs to get fixed, and the fixing is the only you know, way that can actually show a mirror to India.
Right, but I'm not too sure whether or not even these reports are actually showing the mirror to India, or even actually showing the kind of atrocities that are happening more evidently to the other international community as well. And Farrukh, we've seen these reports coming out previously as well, and there are annual reports that are coming in, and they point out what has been going on in India. So for a lot of reasons, it can be said that this is something that India or the international community has also accepted as the norm, and hasn't really done much about in terms of any action. Do you think that these reports mean anything at the center in terms of the impact that the government is going to take in terms of any public outcry within the community of the country, or the international front as well, in terms of the dealings that countries have and the kind of accountability that perhaps their own audiences or their own public can ask them of dealing with such a country who's engaged in these atrocities?
Right, Sana, thank you very much. Very good question. And I think that it is an analyst's job to not only voice what is right, you know, speak for what is right, but also to be realistic, right? Let me be honest about where we are at in history regarding what is happening in India. I think that these reports, particularly the one HRW report, this and other reports have two problems with them. One, they only see reality piecemeal. For example, as you pointed out, they are annual, right? They don't actually take stock of 10 years or 9 years of Narendra Modi's rule. So what has happened in the past might actually have built up to the current reality, but that is somehow lost in the translation. The second thing is filters within India's society. In your introduction, you actually brought up BBC's documentary as well, which was a commentary on what happened in 2002. That is more than 20 years ago. And yet, that documentary could not make it to Indian people, because Indian government somehow knew how to filter it out, and they stopped it from reaching the masses. India right now, thanks to whatever has been happening, and we have actually spoke about it repeatedly, is like a panopticon built by Jeremy Bentham, where you have one watchtower at the center, and the rest are actually, you know, cages where you can keep looking. So all the people are being watched by the Indian government, and secondly, Indian government has full control on what comes inside India and goes to the people. So honestly, it is not going to have any impact at all on how India's politics is going on. I think at this moment, so far, it has been Narendra Modi's party's MO, and that's how they have actually come to power. This is how they have been actually perpetuating power. And thanks to the English language, there's a term regarding various institutions in India, and that term is also associated with India. It is called India rubber stamp. So all these institutions that you are looking at, the media, the judiciary, whatnot, they all are India rubber stamp. And unfortunately, I did not actually coin this term, so you cannot accuse me of being prejudiced. But given that, let me ask you one thing. Now that the first phase of Narendra Modi and his party's government is complete, that is acquiring power and perpetuating power. This is going to be a phase called consolidation. So in consolidation, what you do is you start being charitable. You start being sounding diplomatic and reach out to the underprivileged or victimized communities as well. Internationally, it might actually mean that perhaps someday he's going to build bridges with Pakistan.
Right.
And I think between Pakistan's elections and theirs, there is a small window that perhaps it might happen. And then he might actually reach out to his own communities as well. So should we keep on worrying on what is happening, or should we focus on something positive as well? So I keep on looking and waiting for the answer of this question.
Right, and so are we all. Of course, this is something that we need the world to respond to, and we hope that we get to see something, and we hope to see some change for the people who are suffering at the hands of Indian authorities and all around the world as well. Thank you, Farrukh. Thank you, Faisal, for being part of the discussion. As always, we'll now see you tomorrow.